Hello, Cosmic Soul family. Welcome to the Livzenastrology podcast. My name is Ella Ivy. I'm the founder and the host of this podcast. And I'm so excited about this conversation with Andrea Livingston and Matt Carey, who are both energy practitioners. Andrea teaches and practices Qigong, and Matt is a Silva Method instructor on how to control your own mind and your own processes. This is a really dynamic, potent conversation. It's so relevant right now with the astrology, especially with Uranus getting ready to ingress into Gemini. So it is going to be about the power and harnessing the power. Look at the graphic of the electrical currents of our mind. So for the next 7 years, the mind is really going to be focused because it's going to be in Gemini, which is how we think, how we perceive our reality. And so these beloved beings are just showing us how to harness the power of our energy currents, chi, through certain practices like Qigong, and then being able to sit in meditation and learning the dynamics of really dropping in and getting into that source level self with the energy work of the Silva Method mind control. So anyway, this is a really fun conversation. I hope that you guys really tune into if you're exploring energy work or wanting to harness and understand the power of the mind and how important it is, especially with this upcoming transit right now. There's just so much dynamic energy happening. And really, it's about understanding how our mind works and how there really is a mind-heart connection to the body and how we can heal ourselves, how we can really learn to regulate our nervous system. But it's through practices. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Again, learning something new, exploring the astrology, but learning how to embody it and integrate it into a really usable and practical way. That's what this conversation is about. So I hope you enjoy the conversation and thank you for tuning in. We're just going to go into it. I just want to say thank you so much for being part of this conversation. And this is so exciting to be able to talk about this because you two, for me, have been very influential in part of my healing. And just so magical how we connected. Andrea, I met you first at one of our 11/11 gatherings. And we hit it off right away. I just felt just a soul connection with you. I just loved your smile and your energy. And I've taken some classes with you. We've been out in nature in the Crystal River area in Florida. And I love how you take us there and guide us through these techniques of Qigong. And Matt, that's how I came to know you, her beloved husband, Matt Carey, who also teaches the Silva Method, which is a very interesting meditation technique. It's one of the older, I would say more original techniques of meditation. And so, again, both of you have been so influential in my world. So I was just compelled to ask you to share your wisdom, to share your knowledge, because astrologically right now, and we're talking a little bit about this before the podcast, that there's some powerful configurations with Uranus going into Gemini the end of April, which is really signifying what energizing of the mind. We are being expanded within the mental realms. And so we can also have a nervous system reset, which I'm sure a lot of us can be feeling within our nervous system. So these beloved beings have discovered and have practiced and have implemented these incredible techniques and grounding practices with you and with the Qigong to get you in the body to make space for all this energy. And then Matt, with you, with learning how to harmonize and control the mind with what, by getting us into these certain states of consciousness, these certain brainwave states so that we can repair, heal, and just really become our best version self. So I feel like it's an integrative approach. So I love that you both have these keys that I feel like a lot of people might be needing because this Uranus ingress into Gemini is going to be for the next 7 years, right? So for the next 7 years, it really is going to be about the higher mind, but how can you bring it into the body, into an embodied way? So I'd like to start with you, Ange, first. And, how did you get started with Qigong? I mean, how did this journey begin for you in your practice?
Well, many years ago, I went to a sweat lodge and there was someone came in the morning and I never heard of it, Qigong. And I don't remember anything about it except one thing about when you're entering a place where you have some tension or anxiety, that you would zip up and you would protect yourself. And that just remained with me. And in my work, when I was with hospice, sometimes I would be going into homes where it was pretty intense. And I would just mentally do that. And it just meant something. And I did study Tai Chi for about 2 years. but then fell off the practice mode, and more recently met someone who was teaching, and it just aligned with me just so totally. And the difference between Tai Chi, which is beautiful, but but its emphasis, it's a martial art, and Qigong is about self-healing. And I do practice a certain um, technique with Qigong because there's 10,000 registered forms. And this is called Spring Forest Qigong. And the whole idea with that is that spring, it's because it's when everything is budding and blooming and new beginnings. And forest, because it's not just one tree, it's not just the Qigong tree, it's any and every modality that fits into healing and unconditional love and just becoming the best that what the best that we are destined to be, who we actually are, but we don't always recognize. So this just opens up that awareness.
What
And
a perfect
it's tapping, it's tapping, it's bouncing, but mostly it's visualization.
Well, I think it's perfect. You said it's spring because it's springtime right here. We're in the west
Yes.
northern hemisphere of the United States. So, how apropos
Right.
we're having this conversation, because we do have this new moon in Aries coming up, the middle of April, which is signifying really the beginning of the new year's true springtime. So this is so funny that you're saying this is.
Yes, it
This
is.
is, yeah. There's a correspondence there for sure.
And it doesn't matter what anyone's like um, focus is or what your condition is that you want to be changing, whether it's physical or emotional, because the whole focus then becomes aligning and balancing and harmonizing. So, and it just speaks to me, and I just love to share it. And the founder of Spring Forest Qigong, the focus is a healer in every home and a world without pain and suffering. So
Mm.
it's just to spread that message.
Mm. Now, how have you seen from working with these practices? We wanted you to tell me a story about some recent healings that you've experienced, and even with your animals. Can you go a little bit into that?
Yes, well, I'd say one of the first ones was we have an area behind our house that is like, look, we live in Central Florida, and it just looked like, swamp and, vines and trees. But we had this beautiful area of these overhanging trees, and we just saw the pathway, because with qigong, whatever ails us is we are opening up our channels and we unblocking blockages. So then all of a sudden, physically, we saw the path and made that happen.
Mm.
Now with the healing, we have animals, and one of our animals had a bladder stone, and the other one had a paw. His front paw was twice the size, and the both Matt and I were able to do the healing that allowed the stone to disappear. I was shocked and pleased. And also the cat's paw, to come back to normal size. And it is aligning with the healing power of the universe. And it is emptying our minds.
Mm.
So, and then it happens in very quickly. But first, you have to get to that place of emptiness, and that takes practice. Some
Mm.
come to it very quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
some, but it's all good, better, best. It doesn't matter, we just keep on keeping on, and then good things come.
Wow. From an astrological lens, we have what's called the South Node. So that's in Virgo, which is all about practice. And the South Node is what our mastery is, and the North Node is what we've come to learn. And that's in Pisces, which is our spiritual nature. And so, how will we do in the physical every day, our routine? And I love how you said that. It's a practice to get into these states of emptiness so that the body can self regulate and heal itself.
Right.
Now, I want to transition a little bit into Matt's offerings because I feel like you're such a divine compliment, and I love your coupling and just your partnership because I feel like this is also where we're moving towards, is just harmonizing within our relationships and really adding value to each other. And so you guys are a cooperative, I see. Like I said, Andrea, you're working with the body, with the Qigong. And then Matt, you're teaching the Silva Method, which is a very profound meditation technique or series of techniques that I've got to tap into and take a class with and get certified in. And so it was a really amazing experience. It's a 4-day immersion that really just helps you get into that practice, right? To that Virgo routine of getting into stillness. So Matt, let's talk about a little bit about how you got into the Silva method. How did you become a practitioner? Like, how did that come about?
Okay, well, my first experience with Silva Method was back in the 1980s. I was in college. I was a late bloomer. I should have gone to college in the 70s, but I ended up there in the 80s. And I was working at the Office of Veterans Affairs as a counselor. And one of the other counselors came walking in on a Monday morning, and he was just vibrating and bouncing. And as he walked past my desk, he dropped a book on my desk, which I'll show you here. I hope it's not backwards. I hope but was the Silva mind control method. And he said, Matt, you got to read this book and go to this class. And at the time, being a full-time college student with 2 kids at home, I was like, well, I can't afford to go to another class right now. But I read the book and I followed Jose Silva's techniques, and I practiced and practiced, and started using Silva method in my life. And I didn't go to the class for many years. I just figured I learned enough out of the book and I used it. And to be honest, after a few years, what I was just doing was I was just, when I was frustrated or something was going on, I would close my eyes, take a deep breath, put my 3 fingers together, and just calm myself. And that's all I used for many years out of the Silva method. And it worked. It was like a miracle to do that, because it just kind of brings your levels down. And then just a few years ago, I was going through my bookshelf and rereading some of my old books, and I found the Silva method again. So I was rereading that because I was like, "Oh, this is great stuff." I remember, I haven't read it in a few years. I think I've read the book about 8 or 9 times over the years. And I was sitting there reading it one afternoon, and Andrea came walking through from the other room, and I said, "Honey, I've got to find out where they're teaching this so I can go actually take the class now." And she says, "What is it?" So I showed her the book, and she goes, "Well, you remember, I'm a Silva graduate, don't you know?" She had actually taken the class in 1974. Um, and I said, "Oh, I kind of forgot about that." And I got a hold of a Silva instructor down in South Florida and made arrangements for the following month to go down and take the class. And Andrea went with me, because that's one thing Silva graduates can do. After you go the first time, you can go back and retake the course at a very, very reduced rate, with just a little small charge to help pay for the room we're in. So Andrea went with me, and I knew by the second day of the 4-day immersion that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to share this with other people. So I approached our instructor and I told him what I was thinking. And he says, "Well, hold on to that thought. A lot of people come to this class," and he says it's so intense, they get so excited. He goes, "But then after a while, it kind of fades." He goes, "I want to make sure you really know that this is what you want to do." And the next morning, as we were getting ready to get started for the third day of classes, uh, Keith Harmeyer, who's now a good friend of mine, is our instructor. He came over to me and he says, "Hey, Matt," he says, "last night I was thinking about this." And he says, "And I've been watching you and paying attention to you." And he says, "I really think you'd probably make a good instructor." So he says, "Let's talk about it some more. And after this," he says, "I'll introduce you to the right people in the Silva organization, and we'll see if we can get you on the path." So during my first immersion, I started right on the path of becoming an instructor for Silva Method. And it took me just about a year. I had to go to a bunch of courses. I had to take special training. And a year later, I was a Silva instructor. And as you know, you're one of my graduates.
Yes, I
And
am.
it's just it's a great way to get into meditation, because I had tried other forms of meditation before and walked away kind of disappointed, going, I can't do that. I can't go that deep. I can't stop my thoughts. I can't do all of this stuff. So I guess I'm not a meditator, but through Silva Method, we teach a method where what if you go to a 4-day immersion, when you leave, you can meditate. I mean, we take you through guided meditations. We teach you how to get there, and it doesn't have to be these long endurance meditations where it's an hour or 2 hours of sitting cross-legged and trying to go to nothing. We teach you how to use meditation in your everyday life to help you be more creative, to help you solve problems, to help you get things done. So it becomes an everyday thing that you can use all the time, rather than carving out time and setting it aside, which a lot of people have a tough time doing nowadays. Everybody's so busy,
Yes.
raising kids, having jobs, and they're like, I can't carve an hour or two out of my day. And the Silva Method teaches you that and allows you to be able to do that. And you can do a meditation in 5 minutes. It makes it so easy. And I'm not putting down long meditations. I have recently become involved in much longer meditations, and I'm really enjoying that. I've finally learned how to go to the nothing. And I got to give a shout out to Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I went to one of his week-long, I want to call it a retreat, but it's more like boot camp. It's not easy to do. He really works you hard for the week. But we did some very long meditations in that, and I felt I was just going so deep and getting there. So shout out there. So now I use Silva meditations in my everyday life all the time. But now I also know that I can go deep and go into the longer meditations. And I think Silva Method prepared me for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because
And I
it's so
wanted
easy
to,
to do.
well, and I want to also for young viewers or newer viewers to the Silva Method. I know right now, because of everything that's going on with what's being revealed in social media and stuff about mind control and the power of the mind, and how there's been certain power plays with people in higher positions that have understood the power of the mind and have been capitalizing on that, and unfortunately using it against us because we don't understand how our own mind thinks. So for those that are new to the Silva Method, when it says mind control, just to understand, it's you learning to control your own mind, not right. Any external, right? Because sometimes these words are very triggering, especially with everything we're very sensitive right now as a community and as humanity, because we understand that our mind is controllable, and if you're not programming your own mind, somebody else is. It's just right. The way it is. Exactly. So we have to just understand that, and this is, to me, is like an empowerment tool that helps you to regulate, to get to these states of consciousness, to get to this oneness, this 0 point, this empty space, whatever you want to call it. There's different language and different cultures that have described what this state, right? It's like sometimes they call it the state of samadhi, right? Which is like no mind. And when we can get there, that's when the body just starts harmonizing and self-regulating. It just starts putting things back together. And in through the astrology speaks, this is where we can really timeline jump, like your cat did, right? There was a reality in which your cat had that paw or had that stone, and you created a different reality based on what you were focused.
Right. Well, and I just also add that when Matt went to take the Silva class for the first time, I went along with him. It had been many years since I had taken it. And I went with a very critical eye, and I could find absolutely nothing wrong. It's so, and I was amazed, it's so aligned with my practice of Qigong and how this young Mexican man, Jose Silva, who had no education, no formal education, how he created a system that was, in my view, just like what the ancient Chinese had discovered, connecting with the divine, connecting with that source that then opens up all the possibilities in our lives, whether it's relationships, financial, health, whatever, just aligning ourselves with with heaven and earth, with the divine. And it doesn't have to be religious. It's not religious, but it's aligning ourselves with who we are meant to be. And then the results, then the miracle, that's when miracles happen.
Just
Now,
to add on to that,
yeah, go ahead.
when Jose Silva was still alive, he was very fond of telling people that I didn't invent anything. He says, I just studied and studied, and I learned many, many things, and I put together this package that makes it easy for people to learn. So that's why I know Andrea says it kind of fits hand in glove with her ancient practices. Well, Jose learned those, and he just put it together in a package that he felt was going to be easy and helpful for people. And millions of people across the world have learned Silva Method since it first started in 1966. So
didn't he originally do? You can confirm this. Didn't he originally do this for his children so his children could study more? Yes. It wasn't that his motivation from the beginning, and then he found like go into the story of that a little bit, because didn't he mind blow the people around him why his kids were the smartest?
Right. What all of us at Silva are fond of saying is that our program came out of an act of love. When Jose Silva came back from World War II, he noticed that his children were getting poor grades in school. And he says, I don't know why they're getting poor grades. They're such smart kids. And maybe if this was modern times, his kids would have been diagnosed with ADHD or whatever, But Jose, who was familiar with psychiatry and hypnosis and all that, he started out hypnotizing each of his children each night and reading their lessons to them. And then he would bring them back out and start asking them questions, and boom, 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 they were answering all the questions to everything he had just read them while they were in a hypnotic state. And their grades started going up and up and up in school. And his neighbor said, well, how come your kids are so smart all of a sudden, but ours aren't? And can we bring our kids over? And Jose was, next thing he knew, had the whole neighborhood coming over every night. And he said, I can't keep doing this with this many people every night. And so then he started developing a method where he wouldn't have to hypnotize people. He was just teaching them to bring their own brain waves down from this beta level where we're all looking at each other and talking to each other and everything is here. And he was teaching people and kids to start with how to bring their brain levels down into the alpha and theta states where they could concentrate better and learn better. And it all went from there, and he developed the whole program. It took him 10 to 15 years.
And then he learned something from one of his children, because working with her, all of a sudden she started anticipating the next question. And this was a surprise to him. So the second part of the Silva training is all about intuition and trusting. See, we all have that intuitive mind, but we block it out, or we hear it, we don't pay attention. And the Silva Method really embeds in you because you practice it during the immersion, during the 4 days, especially the last 2 days, of trusting that other voice, and that's available to you, that has answers to your health, answers to relationships, answers to a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow. It's funny for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I would recommend you check out the video, because as I'm interviewing, there's a image behind them, and it says the scale of brain evolution, and the top layer is beta, and the image I'm getting is like the ocean. When you're on the top of the ocean, there's currents, there's waves, sometimes you're getting rocked by the ocean. And so you got to go below the surface, almost like a scuba diver, right? Getting into alpha and theta, because that's where the water's calmer. That's where things are more serene. It's peace. Right. And then that's when you get to that peaceful place, that's when all the answers, especially if you hold the intention, what do I need to know right now? What is that sacred part of myself teaching me that I need to know to live my most harmonious life? And so I love that it's a muscle. You have to practice it. It's you have to build it. And what I've noticed too in my own experience with both of you is when you do it in community, you do it with others, to me it's exponential. Because especially, like, for example, Andrea, you took the immersion class with me, with Matt, when we got certified, because you took it again and we went together. And I noticed that it was so much easier to get into those states when we were all doing it together, right? Mm-hmm. Matt, and part of the class, you provide a sound, you take us down to level, right? You walk us through with your voice, which I think you have a perfect voice for that, Matt. This is probably why your teacher saw that in you, right? You can hold that space. But I found too, also when I took the Qigong too, right? It's like we're harnessing energy as a community, and things just happen faster when two or more are gathered, right? So this is the power also of community and doing it in group, and why they offer the 4-day immersions. Because I'll tell you, when you're immersed in it, you really just come out and you want to keep that momentum. It just ignites this really powerful momentum of practicing this. Now, I've got to be honest, I've kind of fallen away from it because I've kind of living in the mountains right now. I'm kind of doing the hermit thing, but I do remember how powerful it is. And I go back and I have they give us a manual and a book, and go into these levels. So it is a remembrance of when my mind is getting too spinning. Cause again, we have Uranus approaching Gemini. So it's really activating the mind. It's activating the nervous system. And so even though those of us who are skilled practitioners have been feeling this energy, Andrea, didn't you just experience something yourself, even though you're a dedicated practitioner? And this is what I also want to invite people in. There's an integrative approach to how to work with these energies. It's not just all, the power of the mind. You got to integrate it in the body. And sometimes we need support in the body, right?
Well, I think that's why when Jose developed the course, it was come back again. You come for the 4 days, you become immersed in it, you see that you can make a difference in your life. Yeah. You can quote control your mind. You can have influence and make happen your dreams and your hopes and your intentions. But we're human, and I didn't keep up with it when I first took it, and I realized that probably would have saved my first marriage had we both practiced. But it did change my life. It veered me off in another direction of recognizing an otherworldly thing. It's like, we know our material world, and then there's a whole lot in the non-material world that, so that was a life changer. So to come back to it, was very powerful for me, and especially to do it with Matt, with him loving it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty good. This is, it's different language. It's a different approach than the Qigong, but it is very much the same. We're all in the forest, together, we're all part of this happening of making the world a better place, and starting with ourselves, making ourselves better so that we can be there for the world.
And your pets, because wasn't it a collaborative experience? Didn't you both put the energy and the intention in your animals that heal?
Yes. 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 Especially the cat with his front paw he comes in limping, and it was twice the size. And of course, first I panic, and I tried to get him to the vet, couldn't do that. And they said, we'll take him to the emergency vet. Well, $800 later, I decided not to do that, that I was going to look to practice. And I was able, in a very short span of time, literally probably under a minute even, I had this vision. And when I came home, I said to Matt had been practicing on him too. His paw was like much less swollen. And the next day he's running. It's all back to normal, and he's running. And, part of me is like, I can't believe it, but I can believe it. It's, learning to have faith in our ability to align with the healing energy of the world, and heaven and earth and all of that. So it's about faith, and it's about practice. And so that's why, like with Jose, the Silva Method, recognizing that, you may get inspired, you may do it once, but then, the tendency is that life happens and you slack off, but you can come back, and
Right.
you can come back for almost nothing,
Right.
but just the investment of your time and into learning again for yourself how to make this happen, how to make good things happen in your life.
Yeah, that's great, and I'd like to expand a little bit on the healing methods
Sure.
and techniques. Both Andrea and I have taken classes in Qigong on how to work with healing. A lot of it's healing yourself, but we actually took a course together on healing other people using Qigong. And in Silva Method, we do the same thing, working on healing other people. It's kind of, well, a lot of very religious people do prayer circles among their community.
Mm-hmm.
And we do the same thing with Silva Method. We gather up healing energy and we send that to people. And it's there's so many names for it. There's Reiki, there's Qigong. We send healing energy to people. A lot of Christian people do prayer circles. And when you think about it, it's really all the same thing. It's gathering up this energy from your higher source and pulling it together through you to send out and share with other people. And there have been many scientific studies done on it, and it's very successful. They're scientists all over the world have studied this type of thing and realized there's something to it. It's not just medicine and operations. There's something to this moving energy from one person to the other.
The power of our thoughts.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, it's funny because, Bruce Lipton wrote the Biology of Belief, and I know he's really good friends with Joe Dispenza. And I believe, and you can connect to this, Matt, that when you went to the immersion that he offered, there's actually scientists that he has as part of his time to measure. These things are measurable, right? So there is scientific truth to this and backing of it. Of how
it's quantum, it's the quantum field.
Yes.
It's not just Newtonian physics.
That's right.
Just the fact that that a particle, with something is both a wave and a particle. You can't be both, but you are both. It's like, whoa.
Well, it's the observer effect, right? There's nothing there until you observe it, and then it shows up to be that. I'm still learning this myself. I'm still learning the lingo, but there, again, I would invite you to, because Joe Dispenza's got I've got one of his books right now that I've tapped into called The Placebo Effect, and how the power of the mind, how he was like, him being a doctor was like, wow, I've seen where people have taken sugar pills or taken saline solutions thinking that they went through this particular healing, and it was really nothing, but they healed themselves because they believed they were being healed. So the power of the belief, and this is where Bruce Lipton goes into the biology belief. He actually goes into, he's a molecular scientist that gives like a whole new language for it. Again, scientific based. So,
well, and I would just like to add that you believe it, it works. You don't believe it, it still works.
no
There,
SIBO. Yep.
there is an energy. There is the reality of the practice of it. And if you don't believe it, you have your doubts. You can just put those aside for the moment. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a believer. You can worry, you can doubt, put it aside, do the practice, and then when you're done, come back worrying, come back, whatever,
And be
it's,
open for magic, because didn't you even say too, like, I couldn't believe the cat was healed. Like, I was even having a hard time believing it. And I do
yeah,
this on the
yeah,
daily, right? So
right,
this is
right.
part of, I feel, unprogramming to
Mhm.
reprogram, because a lot of us have been taught to look outside of ourselves for healing, right? To pray
Right.
to an entity, and that's okay too. Again, this is foundational stuff, but we're really moving into a new space of consciousness where we are tapping into our own ability to heal our own bodies. And this is a new way of thinking, it's a new frequency, and it's a new belief system that has to be activated. So humanity right now is going through a huge upgrade. And I just really want to say thank you both for doing your work and following your passion. I could tell from both of you, you love what you do. You both are glowing, and there's no accidents that you two are, like, again, divine partnership. You're doing this together, which I find so just important, because I know both of you are community driven. Just your souls, just knowing a little bit of your background about Andrea, what you used to do with social work, and Matt, you're a builder, right? So you're building,
I've been
both of
building.
you. Yeah, you're both building a new consciousness, and I would say, like, a new infrastructure of the mind. Yeah. So go ahead.
I just wanted to go back to something you were just saying, that I'm sitting here looking at Dr. Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, as we're talking, and you're right. He talks very much about quantum physics because he's a physicist, and after being at Dr. Dispenza's event, he calls it coherence healing. I mean, everybody has their own name for it, but in my experience with working with all of it, it comes back to the same thing. It's using your mind to gather and attract this energy and then send it out and share it. And in fact, I'm actually going for a training up in Connecticut in May with Ken Kasha. It's called the 2-day ultra seminar. And Jose Silva was actually a hands-on healer, which we don't teach in the 4-day immersion. I think that's because of liability stuff, but he actually would do hands-on healing with people using vibration. And Ken is going to be teaching that advanced class in May, and I'm going to be going up. This will be the second time taking that course. And I've kind of developed my own thing where I use a combination of Jose's healing and the Qigong healing and all these other things that I put together when I'm working on people. I know when Andrea had a problem with her jaw a few weeks ago, I had her lay down on the couch and we did a healing on that. And I'm not saying I did it, because she also ended up going to the doctors the next day and getting some medication to swish in there. But within like a day and a half, all of a sudden the swelling in her jaw just shrunk back down and she was feeling much better. So it's a combination of so many things, and it's a lot of good vibrational energy.
I mean, there's many terms: alternative, complementary. For me, I couldn't take care of my particular situation at that point because I could not get into the emptiness. I could not relax. But as soon as I went and I took one antibiotic, and then I was able to do my meditation. And it went significantly down the very first couple of hours. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that you do this instead of, you do this, it can be in addition to, I mean, I wish I could just do it, exclusively. And, in certain instances I did, we did, not it came through me. It's
You
never
allowed
just,
it. You allowed
I
it.
allowed it. Right,
Yeah.
right,
And sometimes I get that because sometimes when you're in pain, it's hard to allow and sit still and get into that because you're
yes,
focused on the pain, right? So then it's like this
right,
inflammation. And
right,
and maybe your higher self or your source self was like, hey, you need this antibiotic right now,
right,
until you get into that. And maybe this is a stage because it's a practice until we become masters of our own healing and
right,
then being able to get into those states even when we're in the pain body. This is why we need the other, right? This is why we need help,
right,
and we need to
right.
help each other through these moments when we can't self-source yet. We're not there yet.
Right. And it's not about ever, criticizing ourselves or we do it wrong. It's all good, better, best. We do the best that we can and it's good enough. And we look to take in a variety of methods to take care of ourselves and others.
And I
In
like what
each.
you said, Matt, that actually is so true, that you're taking all these techniques and eventually you're integrating them into your
Yeah.
own, which that's what I found myself doing because I love yin yoga. I love qigong. I love falun dafa. I love doing breath work. And so I kind of find myself doing my own thing where, I'm integrating all these different modalities and I'm finding what's best for me in that moment, tapping into what I need, what my nervous system needs, and again, it's the practice. So learning
Yeah.
these things as foundational work and then being able to express and you got to know the system before you can start, I guess, playing with different systems within yourself. So this
Right.
is all foundational work.
Well, and another thing about healing and pain and all that type of thing, I know in Eastern forms of medicine that they say that most pain or illness comes from blockages, and it's the blockage of your energy flow, of your chi. So that's why, like as Andrea was just saying, she felt like she wasn't having success trying to work on herself because here was this pain and this blockage, and
Mm-hmm.
she had to do something to get through that. And it's another thing that we teach in Silva is, well, Jose Silva used to tell people, if you have pain somewhere in your body, don't concentrate on healing yourself. Think of somebody else that you know that has the same problem and gather up a lot of energy and send it to them because you become the conduit for that energy. It comes into you from your higher source, whatever that is, and gathers up in you and then flows through you and out to them. And in the process of healing your friend who has a sore shoulder, you're working on your sore shoulder. But if you try to heal your own shoulder, you're concentrating on your shoulder and that pain, and it's tough to get past the blockage when
Mm.
when it's there. But if you're helping somebody else, if you're out there helping humanity,
Mm-hmm.
then it starts flowing through you. And as it flows through you, it heals you.
That makes sense.
So,
Think about how batteries operate, the ascending and descending currents. You need
right,
a channel to send that to so it can be a feedback to come back to you. That makes sense
right.
to me if you're looking how electricity works. And I'm not a master at this. I'm still learning myself because we really are bioelectrical beings, right? So
Yeah,
we do have electrical currents coming in and out. So that makes sense.
And if you don't know somebody with that ailment, you can just think about anybody on earth. There's somebody else having that particular issue at that
Mm.
time, and we can just send it out.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love this periphery that you guys are offering. And again, your wisdom and your knowledge. I mean, Ange, I forgot that you took the Silva Method back in 1970. Would you say 74?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, what prompted you to take the Silva Method back then? Because that seems very progressive at that time to
Well, that
really.
was that was my first husband. My first husband was a Silva graduate. He was so excited about it, and then he introduced me to it. So I attended it with him. And fast forward 50 years later, I'm with my second husband, my beloved, and there he is, excited about Silva. So,
Wow.
and yeah,
I
and
love
there
the
are no
pattern there.
coincidences.
Never, never.
It's
No,
right,
no. There's
right.
not the more you get into as you realize
Yeah,
coincidence all it is coinciding experiences that,
Right.
and this is where, living in the faith and the magic, because there's so much we don't know about
Right.
how our body works, about how our mind works. We're just really tapping into the surface. This goes so deep and layered. And so I'm so, again, grateful that you're both sharing your offerings. Now, for those that are interested in this type of work, I know, Andrea, you said you're mostly centrally located. You're doing things
Yes.
more in person,
Yes.
which I
Yes.
honor. But now the type of qigong that you work with, again, can you name that? And maybe we'll put a link in the bio for the type of qigong that you're
Yeah, it's
practicing.
Spring Forest
Spring
Qigong.
Forest. Okay, and there's
Yes.
videos online. They
Oh
can
yeah, there's all kinds of things online, on YouTube, on Facebook.
Okay.
They offer, daily practices, and
Okay.
but it's a life practice. I mean, there are movements and tapping, but it is then incorporating it into every moment of your life, just
Okay.
like the way Silva is. It's not
Gotcha.
just a 4 day; it's every day. It's every moment.
So if anybody that's listening to this in the now, when you come across this, if you want to find that, you can just check out a YouTube channel, because that's how you began, right? And
Yes,
now you
yes,
started actually getting into the community around you and inviting in a more personal experience. So for
right.
those that are looking community, you might want to check out your local qigong. I'm sure there's offerings organizations for anybody that's, it doesn't matter which age you are to begin this. You're
Right,
never too
right,
old to begin to learn
right,
something new.
right.
And for you, Matt, now you actually are an instructor and you do immersions. What do you have coming up here for anybody that's interested, that maybe has heard of the Silva Method but doesn't understand what it is, or maybe they tuned into your energy and they really like it, say, I want to experience it with him. Where can they find you, and what's your upcoming events?
Well, there's a few places you can find me. The main one is my website, which is silvamethodsouth.com. All kind of written as one word.
I'll put
So
the
the
link in the
Silva
bio for
Method,
anybody. Yeah, I'll put the links
yeah,
for sure.
silvamethodsouth.com. I'm also on Instagram, and I've got a Facebook page, and they each are silvamethodsouth.com. Or, if you look up Silva Method South, it'll come up. You can also find me on Silva International's website, which is the main company that Jose Silva started, and that's silvamethod.com. And I'm on there listed as an instructor. I teach in Florida. I'm currently the only instructor in Florida, and I just recently got permission from the president of Silva International. I'm going to start teaching up in upstate New York this year. Um, I've got a class coming up next week. I usually teach in Orlando here in Florida because it's so centrally located in the state and people can get to it fairly easy. I've got a class coming up next week, but in order to sign up for that, you'd have to jump on today and sign up by later on this afternoon. Then I've got a class coming up in July. I've got a class in New York coming up in August, and then another class scheduled for Orlando in October. Um, can't give you the exact dates off the top of my head, but they're on my website and they're on Silva International's website. Um, so yeah, and you can find, like I said, you can find them on Facebook. I usually post them on there on a Facebook page. So and I only teach live classes. I've had a bunch of people contact me and say, well, do you do any online? Because I don't want to travel to you. And I have to tell them, I'm sorry, but I don't do online classes at this point. I feel very strongly that there's an energy, that there's a deep vibration when you're in the room with a live instructor and live students, and all this energy is just passing through everybody. And I just think it enhances the whole experience to do live classes. And I know both of you have experienced that.
Yes.
So at this time, I'm only doing live in-person classes. Um,
Well, that's
so
perfect. That's also community building, because again, you meet others in these communities that are like-minded, like-hearted. And I've noticed, for me, I still stay in contact with some of the Silver Method students from our class, because it is a bonding experience. I mean, gosh, I was dealing with, the transition of my father during that time. He was very sick. And so there was a lot of emotions that came up for me that were hidden in my realms of my subconscious, which I think sometimes a lot of us, maybe that's why we avoid meditation, because we don't want to feel what's going on underneath that we buried. But it's such a release when you allow yourself to just get into that oneness, because I'll tell you, for me in those states, it's such a release. It's such an expansive experience. It's like I'm getting out of the own constructs of my own limitations and just going to a space, and it's not out there, it's deeply within. So it's a bit of a paradox. And again, it's to be experienced. We can sit here and talk about it and have a great conversation with it. But I would encourage anybody that if you're drawn to this type of healing practices, to go have an experience, right? Go out in nature with Andrea. If you're in the Florida area, contact Matt, go have that immersive experience, because it does matter and it does make such a difference. There's the potency when two or more are gathered, going back for full circle. And again, it's all about community. So I just want to thank you again, both of you, for having this cosmic conversation, integrating with astrology, and just to be able to talk energy in a new way, in a way maybe people have heard about these things, but they don't really know the depth of it. And I love that you both have come from experience. You're both very grounded, just loving people. And I'm so grateful to call you my friends. So thank you for saying yes to this experience. And is there any words of wisdom or anything that you would want to leave the audience with? And any kind of words of wisdom that you would like to share?
I would just say, be kind.
Yeah.
And love one another.
Right. Be kind. What wisdom is greater than kindness? And be kind to yourselves. We're not perfect, and so we have forgiveness and love for ourselves and others, and then be real. Just because be kind doesn't mean not be authentic, but it means that you return to a compassionate heart.
What's your motto? You've said this since I've known you: good, better, best.
Well, that's from Spring Forest Qigong. Good, better, best. You can't do it wrong. There's no bad. Even when we let go of what energy doesn't serve us, we see it leaving our bodies happily, returning. There's no bad energy, just excess.
I love
and Andrea mentioned earlier the connections between the different modalities. And one of the things in Silva Method that Jose used to teach, and we still do, is that, to practice once a day is good, twice a day is better, and 3 times a day is excellent. So with her 3, and there's just that connection there, the 3.
Wow.
Better, best, good, better, excellent.
Well, this to me has been a divine connection. And again, thank you for saying yes to this experience and sharing your wisdom and your truth, and just, yourselves being the better, best version of ourselves. And I've seen that and encountered that in both of you. And again, I want to thank you for saying yes to this experience. So
thank you, Ella. Thank you, Ella.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us on today, and come down and visit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for being part of the podcast, and we'll see you on the next transmission here at Lives on Astrology. So much love. Bye, Cosmic Soul fam.
Peace.
Thank you.